Welcome. Thank you again for joining us. This is the Southern Africa Education Center. We're back with chapter 2 of our webinar on combating misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech in Southern Africa. Thank you again for joining us. This is the Southern Africa Education Center where apologize about that again. I'm honored to be with you again. And today we are here because misinformation and disinformation are not just abstract issues. And some of you might remember the conversation that we had last week where we were talking to experts on the field, we were talking to lawyers, we were talking to people in academia. In Southern Africa, of course, the spread of misinformation threatens our democratic processes and they deepen social divisions. They also undermine fundamental freedoms, from elections to public health crises, from the rights of marginalized communities to everyday decision-making. Misinformation, of course, distorts reality and it weakens trust in institutions, it weakens trust in the media, and even within our own communities. So, as I've mentioned, of course, this webinar builds from the conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago, but today we are taking the conversation a step further because we are going to be focusing on community-based solutions and the role that trusted local voices can play to strengthen information integrity. Today, we want to make sure, and I will invite all of you to think critically about how do we empower trusted community leaders and how do we promote media literacy, but over and above everything, how do we foster engagement and collaboration? We are privileged today to have a panel of speakers who will help us move the conversation forward because communities thrive on trust, knowledge, and engagement. And joining us today is none other than Sibongile Kopu Sugati Akole Sky, who's the news editor at the Eswatini Observer. She holds a BA law degree and has over 2 decades of media space experience, having worked for the 2 most prominent print media publications in Eswatini and covered parliamentary processes, bridging the legislative process in Eswatini closer to the people. She also has interviewed 4 prime ministers in the country, as has been able to field question to the head of state in Swaziland, in Eswatini, who is His Majesty King Swati III. I'm also joined by Tampose Motopong, I call him TP, who's the executive director of the People's Matrix Association in Lesotho. Many of you will have known that TP is the one who had to defend Lesotho after that famed quote from President Trump. He's a vibrant transgender leader who has significantly contributed to the LGBTQ plus movement in his country. He's represented communities in various local and international forums. TP, under his visionary leadership at the People's Matrix Association, has expanded sustainability, campaigning for legislation changes, and assisting the community. I'm also joined by Zakiti Sibanze, who's the national coordinator for the Swaziland Rural Women's Assembly in Eswatini. It's funny, Eswatini, Swaziland, we always use it interchangeably. She also leads the organization's programs and mentors young women. She holds a bachelor's degree in adult education, measuring in community development, and is pursuing her second degree in communications. She's passionate about writing and has written articles for Food for Africa, Democracy in Africa, and the continent. Last, but certainly not least, I'm joined by Samuel Chigamba. I call him Semi. Oh, by the way, Zagiti, I call her ZAR, the South African currency. I'm also joined by Semi, who leads the Epilepsy Warriors Foundation based in Malawi. Semi is a disability advocate and has extensive experience in enhancing the living conditions of individuals with epilepsy and other disabilities living in Malawi and across the region. So thank you to all of you for joining us today, watching us on this very webinar or watching us on our YouTube channel. Thank you again. So without any waste of time, I will field the very first question to all of you, and I would love for you to just volunteer by answering this question. How has misinformation affected your communities? How has it affected the community that you serve, really, particularly regarding the democratic participation and social inclusion? Can I start with you, Semi?
Oh, yes, thank you. Misinformation negatively impacts the well-being of individuals with disabilities. One of the things that is a challenge to us as individuals with disabilities is that we have misconceptions. There are different misconceptions surrounding disabilities. For example, there is a myth that says that a person with a disability brings bad luck. But the truth is that it's just a person with a disability is just like any other human being. And there's also a myth that goes to say that a person with a disability cannot work, cannot marry, but it's not the truth. So because of misinformation, I think this has caused stigma and discrimination against individuals with epilepsy and just disabilities in general. So I would say that there's been limited participation in development activities. I would say that also some people have been decampaigned in the past just because of their disability. Just having a disability, people have been decampaigned. And it has also affected, I would say, treatment-seeking behavior. For example, in the case of individuals with epilepsy and other disabilities that require medical attention. Because, for example, with epilepsy, people say that if an individual with epilepsy takes anti-seizure medication, they will not bear children. So it affects us individuals with disability in so many ways, in participation. Also, if you see in different communities, there are communities that do not, where individuals with disabilities are not represented. Yes, so for now, I would say that. Thank you, Malusi.
Thank you very much, Sammy. I want to bring this to you, Zagiti. What are some of these challenges that you face? And thank you so much, Sammy, for touching on the issue of misconceptions about the different communities that we live in. And there's quite a lot of learning that we all need to do on this end. Zagiti, I'll put it back to you. What sort of challenges have you faced?
And thank you so much, Miles. Greetings to everyone in our space. We are living in countries where leaders don't want to be held accountable. Hence, whenever you challenge or you hold the leaders accountable, you are then labeled in many sorts of names, especially because they also control the media, the traditional media. And what we see in TV, we see as legit. What we see on the Times of Swaziland, I'll keep on making examples of my local country because we have Times of Swaziland, we have Observer, we have other online publications where whenever we see it there, we then think that that information is legit or is truthful. Leaders, there are leaders where when I grew up, I know that that one is a terrorist because we'll see the Times of Swaziland. This person is a terrorist, but actually, in instance, that leader will be advocating for human rights. So those are the information that we get where we are then excluded from society because we are being told that that woman is unruly because that woman is defending her rights. So those are the challenges. They are true. We even had a recent case here in Swaziland where we had a member of parliament who is, I will say, conscious. The chief said she must be removed from the activity because she is known to challenge the status quo. So she wasn't allowed to attend the activity because she's labeled in that particular regard because she challenges human rights in society. Thank you.
What a fantastic point to touch on, Zagiti. And I will come back to you, Sky, to sort of give us a perspective on the media. But I want to bring this to you, TP, particularly what Zagiti is talking about on the normalization of fake news, the normalization of propaganda. You have dealt with this when recently President Trump said when he was addressing the joint sitting of the Congress in America that they've wasted 8 million, or was it 8 billion US dollars supporting LGBTQ communities in Lesotho. And you had to come out and say, but that is not true. So how have you dealt with that? And what are some of these issues that you have faced from the general public in Lesotho and also just broadly around the globe?
I mean, thank you so much, Mills. Yeah, you. It's one of what you bring in now is one of the key challenges that I was going to highlight. That also fueled the misconception that LGBT and identities are un-African. Because what Trump was saying was more pushing to that statement for people to understand or to believe that this has been, the Western idea. And to answer your question, we had to find the ways of strategically responding to that, because without doing it, then it was going to blow on our faces, or even make contribute to the hardship of the advocacy work that we do in the country. So what we did was just to write a statement, a very clear statement to say, please go back to the embassy to find out the facts around this, because we don't know what he was talking about. And yeah, there's kind of misconceptions that are being, or misinformation that are being made on the community, also increase discrimination and violence towards the community itself. Because if we may remember that mostly we find that false narratives justify violence and exclusions from families, workplaces, and communities, and also influence or promote limited access to health services, where people start judging themselves or feeling uncomfortable to access some of the services that are being rendered in the country or across our continent. Also, with that statement that Trump made, also came with the connotations or with the fear that some of the MPs or some of the policy makers might also pull back to say we don't want to be seen pushing the Western agenda. And also with the fact that some were also even blamed that they were pushing that because they were being manipulated or bribed by the US individuals. I don't know, whoever the project was being coordinated by. I don't know which project they were referring to, but it made them it made them felt so uncomfortable to engage with us, so much that we have to find the ways of keeping our allies to push the agenda that we've been pushing towards change of legal environment, and also addressing the barriers on the ground. And lastly, I will talk about the mental health element of it, because when people are being mistreated in the country, or when people feel pressure, too much pressure, they end up being exposed to social exclusion and mental health struggles. So much that the community itself was also battling with that at that point, when we received all these misinformations. And every time when people start saying that, or imposing, or even saying that LGBT people will recruit others to be part of the movement. So all these misinformations are somehow negatively influencing individuals, not only the organizations in our countries. Thank you.
Right. And thank you so much for touching on the impact of this harmful false information, because it's not just false information, it gets harmful, which is why oftentimes it gets to be called hate speech, because that is exactly what it is. And I'm so grateful that you've already started to highlight on the importance of countering false narratives by the statement that you did write. Now, Sky, this becomes a very difficult conversation to have with the media, particularly because on the one hand, it's the media that sort of has to tell the public what the leaders are saying, even if they're lying. But the media must do the media's job, which is to inform the nation that leaders are saying this. But there's a flip side that I want to ask you on the basis of Sky, because there's been instances, particularly in Swaziland, not just in Swaziland, but almost everywhere. There's been instances where media has been labeled as fake news, where media has been accused of carrying a particular narrative. And we discussed this largely the other week when we had the panel of experts here. And I just want to hear from you. What are sort of these challenges that you, from the media's perspective, has sort of seen as a challenge in terms of doing your work?
Thank you. Hi, colleagues. Hi, everyone. Interestingly, okay, to pity, this conversation has taken a turn to blame the media. From where we sit, well, I personally sit as news editor, the misinformation about us is you don't even know where to go. For example, we're making about when elections are upcoming, that people get decampaigned or whatever. People outside there, they believe that if you want a paper to promote you, you have to pay something. And there's absolutely nothing. You just come to the observer downstairs and you say you are Melusi from where, these are your goals, these are your what. And these are just things that will print is and when. We don't even know the people you come from. And then secondly, my paper is fine, owned by, I can't say the state, but a company of the state. But I've worked there for 3 years, but I swear to you, there's been no meeting where we have been called to as the media or the editors or anyone to say, hey, Sky, no. Why did you feature this article? Why do you have a story about the teachers on the streets toying? So I don't know how, as the media, we can also fight this misinformation, because it's like people just think, no, those people are just captured, or they know who, where, or which side their bread is buttered on. But in all honesty, we have literally no interaction with those people. Half the time, we even depend on the NGOs. If you want to push your agendas, we say, for example, I think it's Sam, if you guys have an epilepsy thing, event, you find that we can't attend because we don't have the resources ourselves, not because we've been told, don't go to those marginalized people. So it's just that we are all in the same thing. That's where I presently sit from for now. And I just want to clear it up that there's no, actually, it's even the new medias, the online medias, are the ones that turn the public against us. Because you read something that they said happened in your newsroom and you're like, what? But I've been here the whole day and absolutely nothing has happened. So I don't know where we can try and fight that before we even try to help the less or the marginalized groups of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sky, and thank you again for touching on the issue of, and which is exactly what I was talking about, where you find that the media itself is being labeled as fake media, or they're being labeled as taking a side. And I think this is why the conversation from the onset mustn't come from a blaming, mustn't come from a pointing of finger, but it must come from a situation where we are all trying to find a solution, where we're all trying to figure out, and yes, we are speaking about the new media, which oftentimes will perpetuate what is called false information. But I just want to sort of circle back to the conversation around how then do we address that? And I will like to bring you back in, Sky, to ask what type of challenges have you faced as a media, and not just speaking, on behalf of the publication to which you're a news editor in right now, but just broadly as the media general in your region, what do you think are some of the challenges that media is facing, particularly when they're trying to, to correct a record where the example again, where the President Trump is going to say, we spent 8 million buying condoms, and then the local community is like, but you didn't buy any condoms for us. So now as a media, you are stuck in the middle. How do you navigate a scenario like that?
Thank you, Melusi. Hi again, team. It's a very tricky one because we, the traditional media, and we are also trying to get into the online space. We cannot just publish as and when we wake up. We cannot. Even if we know, we have to call everyone. I have to get the government spokesperson. I have to get Melusi if they're talking about Melusi. I have to get everyone. When the narrative nowadays is just like, no, we already have a comment from this one, so let's push it. So unfortunately for us, we cannot really just say, no, we also have one side, let's use our online platform to go with it. Because at the same time, we then don't want to give feet to, like, then they'll be saying, you see, we are the ones that have the real stories. As soon as we publish something, they follow us. So we don't want to immediately say, no, what was reported by X online paper was wrong. This is the current position. So we also try to hold back until we have all our facts. But it's just a pity that given the society that we live in now, people are gone in 5 minutes, and it's very difficult to recapture them. So that's our biggest challenge, all of us, to come back and say, no, guys, you know what Trump said. Actually, if we're talking about President Trump, no matter how serious the things he's doing, like the tariffs he raised today, there's already memes and TikToks music about Trump saying this is what will happen. And I don't know, the world is just trivializing everything, no matter how serious it is. So I think that's where I don't have the answers, but we have to work hard, all of us, not just the
Yeah.
middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Semi, I want to bring you in here, and Sky is touching on an important point of trivializing the significance of issues. And I'm bringing you in, Semi, because you will remember when we were planning this meeting, and this is testament to the fact that we have to learn every day, right? We have to learn on the language that we use. And I was saying to you, I want you to talk about disabled people, and then I had to be corrected to say you don't use that language. But quite often you get that there's a trivialization of issues that have real life consequences for people, right? That have real life impact that can, just devastate people's mental health, which is what TP was touching on earlier. I just want to find out from you, Sammy, on how then do you think as a community, not just as a community of activists working on disabilities or working on LGBTQ plus, or just generally as society, how have you, using your experience, found that we can sort of counter this wave of trivialization where we're normalizing hate speech, but two, we're just trivializing these issues.
Thank you very much, Melusi. Yeah, actually, we have so much that needs to be done because a lot of people do not really understand, for example, what disability is. You mentioned the issue of terminologies. Most people do not know the right terminology, do not know how to address individuals with disability properly. So it's an issue that needs to be addressed. And I think in recent years, we've seen organizations like the International Bureau for Epilepsy. They had a training for journalists where they trained journalists on ethics and principles for epilepsy reporting. Yeah, so another thing that I would say is that there's need for awareness raising, and also to encourage people to have that critical mindset. Don't just listen and act on information. Don't just listen and share, but think critically. I think one example that I would share is something that we had here in Malawi. It happened during one of our physical meetings. It is said that when a person with epilepsy passes gas, everyone around them then gets the epilepsy. So during one of the meetings that we had, I tried to engage participants to think critically. I asked, if this is true, then wouldn't we all have epilepsy today? By just asking that question, I could see in the eyes of the participants, they could see, they agreed with me. Yeah, so I think it is very important to people to think critically before acting, before sharing any piece of information. There's need to fact check. For example, Sky mentioned earlier. She mentioned that they might not attend a function just because they do not have the funds to attend that function. But someone might be, misinforming others that, you know what, this is what happens with, this media house, So there's need for people, even organizations, to fact check, maybe engage media houses. Why are you not coming to our functions? That way they'll get the right information, and if, when they're sharing the information, there will not be any disinformation.
Thank you, Semi. The importance of critically thinking about what you're sharing. That's a very important point that you're raising, Sammy. And I want to bring in Zagiti.
Well, maybe, oh, it's me. I wanted to also allude to what Sami was doing in terms of the discrimination against people with disabilities across maybe SADC, as we are in SADC, where we grew up knowing that when you are a person with albinism, you are not being buried, you just disappear. Yet they were killed for who they are, but we grew up knowing they just vanish, but they didn't tell us the real things that happens to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe coming to the question, what was the question, Mel?
It's okay.
How
It's
can
okay. I do want this to be an interactive session where we just, take off and feed off of each other. I wanted to ask on the issue that Sammy was raising on thinking critically before you share something. And I wanted to touch based on your experience as you're working with rural women. You're working with women who are, I don't want to say disadvantaged, but or disenfranchised, because I think we need to start speaking positively. But I want to say you're working with communities who might not have the access to some of these platforms to correct the statements, who might not have the platforms to cross-check information that is being shared with them. So how are you as a community that's working on the rural space, making sure that whatever information that is being disseminated, that is being shared, is credible?
It is really difficult. We were laughing at my mother some weeks back. She believes everything she sees on Facebook. I was like, Mom, no, that is lies. It's not true. And she was saying, how can I then see if this news or this information is false? And I said it is very difficult because you just see it, a person have written, and you would think it's a legit information, it's a real information. But what we have done as rural women, in ensuring that people are not misinformed, we physically communicate with them. Take, for instance, during the COVID-19, there were a lot of misinformation that was going on. If you take these, people were taking all concoctions. We were making alcohol from different stuff. These things we get on social media, which can end up even killing people, affecting the health of people. So we really had to stretch, because we were no longer able to do the usual meeting, physically meeting. So we had to stretch and train social media persons in each and every group, so that we are able to inform our members on what really is COVID and everything. So we had to literally tell them ourselves, so that they now believe, oh, because they are members, they believe us, they know us. We wouldn't lie to them. But there was a lot of things that were happening, and and also the Zoom meetings that were happening. So those media people in each and every woman group had to get online and be with small group, because we were limited from being in larger numbers. So it is then that we will have the conversation on that particular topic, which we are still doing even today, to ensure that our members are getting the information. But yes, it is very difficult, because we have a large membership, 23,000 women, and it is difficult to reach them physically. Even if you want to send some pamphlets, you still need to translate, because there are rural women disadvantaged. Some are not even able to read, so they need someone to help them. So it's still a challenge, but that is what we have tried as rural women to keep our members informed with the correct information.
You're right. You're right, Zagiti, particularly on the issue of COVID-19, where there was difficulty in bringing people together to try and correct the record. And I can imagine even for the media, they were scrambling to figure out which sort of information is credible, which sort of information we should be sharing with people. I want to bring you in, TP, on the question of what sort of solutions over and above. And I love the fact that you've already started to mention on the fact that you write statements to try and correct the record. But how do you do more than that in situations where it's an already disenfranchised community that is fighting harmful narratives, that is fighting discrimination, that is fighting stigma? What more can communities of marginalized communities do?
Okay. It's a broad question, eh? Normally, in Lesotho, we do community sensitization programs where we engage with religious leaders, we engage with parents and families and any other subgroups that might need information. So within the LGBTI community, what we do is to ensure that as the organization, we're at the point where we access information as raw as it is, and also as factual as it is, so that when we pass to the community, whether through our social media platforms or through any gatherings that we might have, at least we have factual information. Even if they have received any kind of information before, it's all about correcting what they have so that we are all at the same level. I'm saying this because I know some of the misinformation that we mostly get within our community or within the community that we serve, and also across the country, will be the information related to the legal protection of the community, where you find that most people will tell you that you're not even covered by the law, or your rights are not even considered. So it's about us getting the facts to understand what the Constitution says and what the specific law says, so that we know how to pass that information to the individual, for them to know how to exercise their rights in the country. We also use campaigns like the media engagements, the media campaigns. We use our local radio stations, we use our television, we use any online platforms to ensure that at least, even if like I said, passing information. And to make that even more powerful, we engage with media journalists, media personnel, media practitioners, to ensure that at least they have correct information about us even before going anywhere. So how we do it in Lesotho, we identified media houses to engage with, and also those who are for and those who are not for LGBTI, so that when we pass information, or when they also disseminate information, they have factual information about us. So if I remember in the case where we had one of the radio stations, which is so traditional in the country, and we're also not willing to work with the People's Matrix, what we did was to correct the information that they passed in the media platform, so that they also get to understand how this information about them, also not only about us, can also tarnish their image. So it was all about also pulling their attention to say, come back to us to get information when you want to publish anything about LGBTI, so that also when we go back to you, we have factual information about you as the entity. So we also work together with we work in partnership with other NGOs and Ministry of Health and other government entities, to ensure that we have accurate information, and also we also pass information to them. Sorry, I'm trying to cover everything that I have within a short space of time. So attending, countering myths through research, conducting studies on LGBTI experiences in Lesotho, and using data to debug false information is one of the information that we use, the strategies that we use. We have community-led information, community-led feedback given mechanisms that we have, that is also a good platform that we use to share information, the accurate information about the experiences of people in the country, than having to learn from specific individuals about other people's experiences. So yeah, lastly will be, not lastly per se, but we have like different engagements, lobbying and policy dialogues, you know, with the MPs. So we do a lot of advocacy with them to understand, so that they can make informed decisions. We engage with them to make sure that they have accurate information about LGBTI. We use our pride events, our public space, our public activities to make sure that we disseminate correct information. Yeah, that's in the nutshell that what we do. And lastly, that would be use of legal in brief that we have been using throughout the country to make sure that whoever wants to know about us has that information pertaining legal information about us. Thank you.
And thank you for touching on the legal side of things. And this is where the Southern Africa Litigation Center jumps in to work with communities on the ground, because it's never just about SALC. It's about making sure that we are responding to the need on the ground, and the communities are taking lead on this. Sky, on the previous webinar, we were discussing, and one of the senior lecturers at the University of Swatini, Ngobilen Zinisa, who teaches journalism and mass communication, touched on something very important. And she said, the role of the media is to present various sides to a story and allow the public to make their views. No one media outlet will tell the absolute truth of a story, because multiple influences, such as who is in charge, there's politics, there's advertising. And I think Mobilo was touching on this point that you had sort of highlighted earlier. And I just want to ask you a question based on the issue that TP is bringing out of working with the media to make sure that, you know, there's a sort of an understanding, so that we are making sure that we are curbing harmful information. I want to find out from you, in working with marginalized communities, and I know you and I have worked back in my days when I was like an LGBT activist. We've worked together quite well, not just with you, but with the media in Eswatini, as we've continued to work around the region, as TP is staying there, also working wonderfully in Lesotho. I want to find out from you on the stigma that is then attached to that particular journalist or that particular media house, to say, oh, you are always covering events that are addressing disability issues, or you are always covering events that are addressing LGBTQ issues, and therefore you must be, you know, on that particular side and not that particular side. How do you deal with that as the media, in ensuring that you remind people that you know, you have a job and your job is to report?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I was hoping we wouldn't really get into the LGBTQI one, because I think we all know the situation in Eswatini. Basically, it's just illegal. So I don't know. According to our authorities, I think if they could, we wouldn't write anything about anyone. So yeah, it's a very tricky one. But what I would like to highlight to not just LGBTQI, but all other organizations, maybe the ones with and you'll correct me, Sam, your lingo on disability, disabled person living with, you need to visit our newsrooms again. We always get it wrong. No, and not intentionally. We don't want to wake up and say you're deaf. Some of the people say no, it's hearing impairment, but the name of the organization is called deaf something. So it's really tricky for us in that regard. But Mel, I think the stigma in almost everything, even the LGBTQI, comes from, I don't think we enforce our laws as a country. We have recently, not even recent, the Ministry of Information and Communications and, okay, why am I saying the whole thing? ICT recently past the cyber crimes, blah, 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 blah. But when you look at other people with, like when you look at just basic Facebook, you can see so many fake names, so many fake profiles. And those fake profiles, the people just sit down and say, I don't think I like what Sky said about me. Then they start typing, typing, typing. I'm not saying, but I am. Maybe government should just hire someone who just sit there and say, why aren't you using your proper name, Mel Similani or Mel Sims? Let's just know it's you. Allowing these fake accounts and all that, I think it's one of the major things that cause misinformation about anything. Because people will say, even if they know the truth, and people now know the truth about things, but they'll just, because they are hidden under something, they won't come out and say, yeah, I'm Melusis Melanie, and this is what I think about this. So yeah, I think for the media it's, but I'm sorry, Sam, I see your hand is up. But also on the marginalized groups, I really would encourage them to take us along everywhere they go. Zagiti, it's unfortunate this is the first time we're meeting here, and this is not how it's supposed to be. Because you should know that, no, I want to, because reporters also have a tendency of saying, yeah, double edit. They don't want to publish our things.
Yeah,
But
that's what I'm saying.
yeah, you
That's what
find that
I'm saying.
they didn't even write a thing. But that's just my team. So I think we should, as many groups, I'd encourage you to also know the newsroom, know the so-called people who are saying not to be publishing things. I think it's a start so that I also understand that. Or what I've seen with groups now, some groups they like saying, "Oh, it's okay. We'll write it for you. Just send. We'll write it for you. You don't have to come. We'll just send whatever." And because I can't feel, or my reporter hasn't felt the depth of what you guys are going through. When we publish something, it's just there on page 10 and we never remember it. So I think we need to engage more. We really should. Don't leave the media behind. I promise.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll bring you in, Sam, in a minute. I just wanted to correct what Sky was saying around the legality of LGBTQ issues in Swaziland. And I think this is the misinformation conversation that we need to constantly have, because too many times, and then I think TP mentioned this earlier, where there will just be this assumption that, oh, it's illegal, oh, that is illegal. And I think there needs to be a proper conversation. And I think also Semi had mentioned earlier on issues around, or was it Zagiti who was mentioning earlier, where people will say, oh, this is happening because of this particular group in society, or that is happening because of that particular. And I think it becomes a very, very harmful narrative that has real life consequences. So I just wanted to correct that there's nothing illegal about being gay. In fact, an identity cannot be criminalized, but we're not here to talk about that. Semi, I'll bring you. And also
But maybe also, Mel, I'm sorry,
and I
maybe
can
also
allow
with the,
Semi first,
oh,
Zagiti, and
all
then
right.
you. Yes. I just
Yeah,
wanted to say, attendees, please continue to write your questions. We'll go to them just now.
yeah. Thanks, Melusi. I just wanted to add on what Sky mentioned about visiting newsrooms, whether it's for trainings or for awareness. I think this should not just be once off. It should be continuous. The thing is, people need to, there need to be renewing of the mind. You have to at least once a year, you have to engage them. And the other thing is that since there is already misinformation out there, at least to defeat that misinformation, the stigma, the misconceptions, it requires us to, to do it frequently. Yeah, that's just what I wanted to add.
Yes, constantly working together, which is the theme of our conversation today. Zagi, to go ahead.
I wanted to share with Sky that just recently, before we started the meeting, I was communicating with the colleague after she saw the poster of our webinar. And she said, "Hey, this thing have become toxic." I had thought the Cyber Act will deal with such, but it doesn't. It just went to people's bedrooms and didn't deal with the toxic thing that is happening on social media, misinformation and stuff, which we thought that was going to be dealt with.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Zayuti, for touching on the issue of using the existing legislative framework. And we did quite touch on that on our previous webinar. For those who never got a chance to watch our webinar, you can go to our YouTube page where we dealt with it at large, where we had a lawyer who also happens to be a commissioner at the Human Rights Commission in Malawi. She works with us here at SAOC, where she was, sort of enlightening us on how these laws work. Either it's the cybercrimes laws, either it's defamation laws. So that's a very important point that you're raising, Zagit. I just want for us to, unless you have something to add on this particular conversation, TP, I want us to go to some questions that we have from our attendees. Please do keep them coming. Do you have something to add, TP, or should I go ahead to the questions?
Not really, but I had in mind just a small thing of freedom of expression versus a harmful speech, balancing the right to freedom of speech, with the need to curb harmful, all this misinformation, because sometimes you'll find that it becomes very difficult for us to draw a line where people are saying, I'm genuinely saying this, I didn't have information about it, or I didn't have any. Okay, sometimes it becomes tricky for us to also measure. I saw a question about measuring some of the impact, because at the end of the day, you don't know whether people are saying this genuinely because they don't have information, or because they have their own reasons of passing misinforming people, or passing this information to about certain group of people. So that is the only thing that I had from, yeah.
Thank you, TP. The first comment.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, it
Okay.
goes along with lack of comprehensive hate speech laws. I wanted to tap on that, because like in my country, we see like lack of explicit legal provisions criminalizing hate speech, and making it difficult to hold perpetrators into account. Because I'm saying this because you'll find that sometimes media has media practitioners have this element of passing hate speech against LGBTI individuals, and often and also we can't hold them accountable, because there's nothing that supports us to do so. So at the end of the day, it goes back to, as much as we're talking about disinformation, there's also that element of hate speech that goes with it. Thank you.
Thank you for touching on that. And just to highlight again on the webinar conversation we had a couple of weeks back, we did touch on an example of a case that happened in South Africa. It's called the Xwelane case. Again, I will invite people to go watch that webinar on our YouTube page, where we went deeper into those sort of legalistic conversation on why it's important to have a legal framework that protects marginalized communities, while equally advancing and protecting that right to freedom of expression. I mean, many of us will know that there is currently a scourge of attacks against the media, whether it's in Zimbabwe, whether it's in Tanzania, whether it's in Namibia, whether it's in Swaziland, where the media is under attack by very powerful individuals, whether it's the state, whether it's private interest. And I think there needs to be sort of this threading of the line between protecting freedom of expression, protecting the press, but also countering harmful falsehoods, whether it's propaganda, whether it's hate speech. So with that, can I go to the comments that we have online? We have Lonhlanhla Mthethwa, who says, in countries like Eswatini, it's not even misinformation, it's state propaganda, where the state regulates the media and it chooses which topics it should publish or prioritize. And I think Sky has already dealt with that. And I think it was also dealt with in our conversation prior, that sometimes it's not just that. And that in itself is misinformation, where we are actually targeting the media unjustifiably. And then there's also Charles Baduya, who says the challenge with combating misinformation is that people parading it have a strong motive against the victims, and they also make it expensive to counter, which is a very, very important point that Charles is mentioning. And again, I'll make the example of powerful individuals, whether it's state actors who will often run narratives that are harmful to our communities. And as an activist, as an NGO that is dealing with a minute, remote community, it becomes difficult to counter that narrative. And then we have to Makakula, and also TP has responded to this question on the issue of impact. And how do you measure the impact of these statements in terms of correcting the right information? And this goes to what Charles is saying, right? Because powerful individuals will run propaganda, whether it's on democratic or political issues, or it's on marginalized communities on the ground. And then when you're trying to counter that, and we've seen in some countries where there will be a story that is false that is being run and gets like a full spread, and then it becomes difficult because when they're trying to correct that, and then you just get a small corner where it says correction, and it doesn't get the sort of equal coverage. And then there's also Dorothy, who says, is the access to information law in Malawi helping to fight misinformation? This one is for you, Sammy, if you can note it. And then there's Tulsile, who says, mine is not a question, but a concern on what Sky has just shared, and anonymity of individuals on Facebook. How best can stakeholders be involved through advocacy initiatives to challenge this? And I think this is an important one because it touches on the hate speech. Can I just go to you, Sam, before I go to the next question from Arnold, which is quite extensive and we need to address it?
Yeah.
How are the information laws in Malawi helping to fight misinformation? And I think I will just ask all of us on our knowledge in our countries.
Yeah, thank you very much, Melusi. Yeah, thank you, Dorothy, for that question. Yes, to some extent, access to information policy is helping fight misinformation in Malawi. But I would say that there is need to measure, we need to know to what extent the policy is helping. Because I would say, for once, individuals with, for the case of individuals with disabilities, most individuals with disabilities are disadvantaged. Well, most of them live below the poverty line. So the issue goes to access. Have most individuals with disabilities access the law? They are aware about the law? Do they know that they can access information? Those are the important questions. So, it leaves us, I think it gives us a task to find out if it's fully it's working, it's helping to fight misinformation, but it's a very good policy.
Yeah, and thank you for highlighting on that. I just wanted to also flag that in Malawi, the MISA, Media Institute of Southern Africa, the Malawi branch, they've created a tool that could be used to make sure that they're checking whatever information, whether it's in the media, whether it's in the public platforms like your Facebook, your Twitter, that you are able as an individual, whatever community, to check if that information is accurate. Does anyone else want to touch on that question before I go to Arnold's point? I will go to Arnold's point. So we've got Arnold Kunda, who is in Zambia. He says, I think the legal environment affects how we address this misinformation. Sorry, my eyes are betraying me. We have big challenges to provide service to sex workers and LGBTQ people in Zambia because it is illegal to belong to any of such groups. But as a service provider on the ground, we face the dilemma of knowing some people who align with such groups and need services. The social media has been very helpful as it provides for some anonymous options, but we are currently debating a pending law to tighten regulation on media, almost to be signed into law. And there's an outcry, it will reduce social media space. Thank you for that point, Arnold. I just want to bring in this question about social media, particularly because someone else touches on this, that's Tulsile Mazia. I want for us to sort of have a conversation about the impact of hate speech and harmful information that is being driven on social media, because this is now beyond traditional media. This is now beyond what is being said on the news at 7 on the radio, or the news at 8 on the TV, or the newspaper article that you see. This is now something that is just constantly happening on social media. I think someone was talking about the trivialization. I think it was TP who was talking about this information then becomes like TikTok memes where it's harmful information. How then do we deal with that as communities? How do we make sure that we're also countering this narrative, not just writing a letter to the editor to say that article was wrong, but where we are seeing a constant sort of trending phenomenon on social media where people are just spreading harmful information? TP.
It's tricky. It's tricky, but what we have been doing in Lesotho is just to analyze the impact of whatever is written on social media. If we feel it has weight on the community, then yeah, that would be when we start responding. But we normally don't respond to social media incidences in Lesotho, because we feel when you respond to social media, then you're bringing much attention towards whatever that doesn't need your attention. So yeah, it's about where it is coming from, and then its impact, and whether it needs your attention. Because I remember when the MPs were pushing the issues on the parliament on intersex and transgender. Some of the pictures were used on social media, and they would be mocked because they are pushing, the inclusion of intersex people in the national policy. So we had to, like, individually, not necessarily as the organization, get into such discussions to maybe educate people. And also where possible, we had to be personal. So it was more of being strategic about it. And also understanding, using such comments also to analyze whether people are being progressive in the country about LGBTI issues or not. But then it's a tricky one, like I said, and because you can't hold any other person accountable on using media platform. Rather, it's about reporting them to Facebook, depending whether Facebook is also interested in blocking such people or not.
Yeah. Zagiti, do you have a point on this?
I think we need to write our own story, Mills, mainly because we now have this AI thing, which get us all the information. And when people like are searching for Melusi, you find that there is a lot of misinformation about Melusi. And you are then being isolated. We can't even run away to other countries, because when they look at Zagit, they see that this Zagit is a terrorist. Or she's that kind of a woman, or she sleeps around, because people are writing that about me. So we really need to be strong on writing our own stories, but also demonstrations of the work that we do, so that people are able to then defend on social media based on practicality of the thing. Takes, for instance, we're doing climate change. It has been advertised now and again that GMOs are the best. It gets ripe in a short space of time. But then when we do the plots with our own indigenous seeds, then we put it out to the people to say, see, our traditional seeds can do it. We can have a harvest. So then if these people are misinforming people about traditional seeds, there are those people who are watching who will then go to the social media and write to say, no, I know it. The this kind of women have grown this particular seeds, they have grown and she have a yield. So the practicality of things can also help in addressing the issue of misinformation. I've been a victim in Ladies' House. It's the social media platforms that are there. Observer was writing a story and I was saying it should be closed because people are getting depressed on being labeled as particular kind of people, whereas they are not. They're separating families. I think someone brought it even this year because it was written last year. The person brought it even last year, and they started pouring every kinds of things that you will think about me, and I will just not read. It's just that people will come to you and tell you that this is happening about you in this particular, and they'll start lying about you. So we really need to strengthen writing our own stories so that when IA collects everything, then it is what you are as Zagiti, not what the people are saying. You need to counter that so that we are not then isolated because there are stories that are told about us that are not true.
Yeah. Write your own story. I love that. That's very powerful. Semi, you had your hand up.
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you, Melusi. Yeah, actually, I was about to say that we had a similar issue in Malawi about a few days back. I think a certain celebrity posted something on social media, and there was just a lot of comments on that post. And in a way, it had something to do with epilepsy. I would say that she mentioned something to do with neurocystic psychosis. And you could see the number of people commenting on that post. There were positive comments and also negative posts. And it was difficult. I was using our Facebook page as Epilepsy Warriors. It was difficult for me to, comment on those posts because, uh, I felt that we could have received negative comments from, uh, people who were commenting on that post. But I came up with a solution. One of the things that we've been doing is using someone who's, for example, medical professions, because epilepsy, most of the times we do, medical professions are the one who assist individuals with epilepsy. So the idea is to start a podcast so that we can have different topics. For example, the topic that was on Facebook, it can also be covered by a medical profession because we want someone who can be trusted to cover that topic in order to, to mitigate that misinformation. So there is one problem. I've noted that whenever we post something on Facebook, sometimes maybe we get 100 comments, but when an influencer or a celebrity posts something, they get like 23K posts. They get lots of comments and likes. So that's one challenge that we have. And that's another challenge that we have about misinformation. Whenever there is misinformation on social media, uh, actually the way that social media platforms are made, I think they do not take misinformation as a thing, but they do value engagement. The more people who like on a post, the click likes on a post, the more people comment on a post. The more the message spreads. So I think we need to come up with ideas, solutions. For us as organizations, advocates, to also share our posts like on social media and get exact responses. That's what I wanted to share.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. So, sorry, Sky, on the issue of social media, I want to find out from you, what do you think? Because here's the point. The beauty about traditional media is that there are specific ethics that traditional media must follow. And the danger with social media is that there is no much sort of ethics that people follow. I mean, today I can create a page and say I have a news. I can just call it a Simelane news. And then I can just write whatever I want to write without following the sort of code of conduct for the media. So how do you think, as the media, or perhaps working together with civil societies and NGOs like ourselves, in making sure that there's particular laws that are being crafted, maybe, or there's a particularly policy framework that is being crafted to address the spread of social media newsrooms, social media newsrooms, because they're dangerous, they're not regulated. How are you dealing with that as a traditional media? How do you see it being dealt with broadly in the region?
The whole region. Okay, thank you for that, Mel. Okay, for starters, It's as a traditional media person, and believe me, every day we're trying to get into that online space. So it's not like we're sitting back and not doing anything. What we unfortunately have is that we come with the laws that we have as traditional media. So there's literally no way we're going to, oh, we're allowed to eat. Yes, there's literally no way that we can just, I'm sorry, you've distracted me. Okay, but the point is, you know, there's a bigger picture. If I could, everyone would just go back to for 6 months or go to a psychology class, everyone, all of us, because this social media thing, and this is not about me, but just a month ago, there was a viral story that went on about me. And it just got, when people are then texting you to say, is it true you do that? And I'm looking at the people who are texting me, and I thought these were smart people. I thought these were people that shouldn't, that I'm shocked that they even look at such things. I look at them because I'm in the media space. So the problem is not that just one wayward man or woman or naughty person. It's just all of us. It's like we're all going through a lot. And if there's something that I can pick on Zagiti that day, maybe their spirit feels good or something. But this whole thing just starts with I think it's a psychological matter that we need to address, all of us, because it's really deep. Because even what can I say? And I don't want to lose my sources who are high up there in government, for example. But if you're going to get a minister text you something that they've screenshot on Facebook or something that you can, and say, Sky, is this true? You're like, what are we even doing here? This is a minister who's supposed to be thinking, how can we reduce the electricity tariff? And I'm not saying it's the Minister of Natural Resources, but this is just the level of where people's heads are. You're like, how is that even an issue given all the things you have to deal with under your ministry? So yeah, like I'm saying, we need to work with our minds. There's something wrong with all of us are going through something. That's how I take it. So this is a start, as small as it is. Believe it or not, this is my first webinar or meeting of the sort. And people always say, Sky, how come you never engaged in these things? Or we always see women having high teas and what, and I'm like, if it's gonna cost me $200, then I'm not going, or something like that. But there's many people who unfortunately aren't out there to speak. And you, Melus, you need to find these people who are very brilliant, but somehow I don't know why they don't show that, you know what, I can speak. But maybe because they're afraid they'll be labeled as terrorists, as Zagiti says, or as soon as you just say, why is there no water in the courtroom? Yeah, it's an issue. It's because you like to make noise. Do you
Right.
always have water? Yes, something like that. It's
Right.
here. Mm.
Right. Thank you so much, Sky, for that. I think you are touching on very important issues around misinformation and the need for all of us to work collaboratively. And just as a final question to all of us, I will let you go in a minute. Zagiti mentioned something very important, which is writing our own stories, because it's
Yes.
important that we correct wrong narratives that might be out there. I just wanted to ask all of us to just respond individually. I'll start with you, Sebi. What sort of future strategies do you envision we should, sort of employ to enhance one, media literacy, but also critical thinking among our different communities so that we can build resilience because this whole thing of disinformation and it was discussed on our previous webinar, that it's actually become normalized, where you can have people in powerful positions just come on media and say things that are quite untrue and they are lies. And then you ask yourself, if powerful people are spreading propaganda like that, then what happens to, individuals on the street who just want to run, rampant with narratives? And I think Zagito was talking an example of, the traditional seeds versus GMOs. And TP was talking about harmful narratives that affect different communities. So just as a wrap up from each one of us, what do we think should be done so that we can encourage media literacy for people to check information that they are consuming, for people to critically think among themselves about the information that they are consuming, and over and above that, putting out there? I'll start with you, Sam.
Yeah, that's a tough one, but I think I'll try to respond. Yeah, I think one thing that we should do, I think everyone should be responsible. If you're sharing information, everyone should know that they have a responsibility. They should ensure that the information that they're sharing should not misinform. Yeah, so I think I would say that maybe for the future, for example, I haven't seen many countries in Africa utilizing, say, spaces like YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, just to raise awareness on important issues or issues pertaining to misinformation. Yeah, so it is very important that we utilize these spaces. Also, keep in mind of individuals who are in rural settings. For example, you can use TV or radio. I think that works best in Malawi for most people who are based in rural settings. Yeah, so I think that's about it. I think I'll keep thinking, and if something comes up, I'll come back with a response.
Thank you so much, Sammy. Zagiti, what should we do?
I think it is important to make leaders aware in communities, especially rural communities. When there are powerful leaders, we can build on something. But if leaders are not aware, they can be very corrosive and destroy communities. We really need to make them aware so that they give proper information to their communities. But also what Sam have touched on in terms of traditional media, in the instance of rural communities, we really need to use the community radios, of which I know in Swaziland they haven't started. We really need to have that so that people get information on radios, because it's something that even older people still use. I will not go to the politics to say there's no information in some of them, because you need to be careful as a worker there in terms of what you say in informing people, because sometimes when you speak things like related to human rights, then you might be a presenter who is not wanted in that space, because it's the truth of it. If you speak things that are related to human rights, it's not only in Swaziland. We know we are similar as Zim, similar to other countries in the region, that human rights then becomes like you are in opposition or something. Civil society has become an opposition. So also the emphasis on telling our own stories. You need to write about yourself, about the things that you are doing, so that no one tells your own story. Um, yeah, I think that is what we need to strengthen moving forward, and also the collaborations that we need to do, Sky, so that I know Observer will cover. Actually, Observer that does the thing for me. They cover Surah stories well as we have given them. So we need to strengthen relations, collaboration, so that even if I know there's an attack on Sky, I'm the first one to defend, to say, no, 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 Sky wouldn't do that. Sky is this and this and this. And in as much as Rural Women's Assembly, we'll know that Observer will defend. It's the organization we work with. This is what Surwa is doing, so that we deal with misinformation from people that are full of hate. And I agree with Sky when she was saying we are angry, we are an angry nation or people, society. There's a lot of things that have happened to us. When you have a chance to put out the anger to people without them seeing you, that is why we have a lot of fake accounts on Facebook. People are just angry with whatever they are angry with. They come to social media and start betting to people who are just innocent. So we really need to collaborate in order to counter that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'll bring you in, Sky, because Zaketu has already talked about the wonderful collaboration that exists between the media and organizations like ours. What should we do to make sure that people are thinking critically about the information that they're consuming, and particularly on media literacy?
Okay, there's always been I don't know who came up with it, but it's old. It's called think. But the first thing is is it true? The moment you read something, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? I think nowadays we need to move towards the think theory. I'm not saying we should then be kind to people who are corrupt, who steal medicines, but that's the first thing, that whenever someone posts something, for example, that so and so has done this and this and this and this, but you should just sit back and think, is it true? First of all, and don't be defensive yourself first. Like if someone says something about Melusi, that we saw Melusi, all these people are what, and then you start defending someone who's part of a marginalized group, yet maybe that person did stab someone. So let's not be quick to take sides on what happened. Let's all get the facts of what happened at first, then we can have a think. But the collaborations and such engagements, I think really work. There might be a small drop in the ocean, but if we speak and speak and speak and speak, we'll get somewhere.
Absolutely. Thank you. I do love those acronyms. Think. We'll use that. TP, I'll give you the last word. What should we do to encourage media literacy and critical thinking to information?
I think it's good to be the last speaker because people have already said it all. But yeah, just to maybe flex some of the things that I had in mind. As much as we see media and social media as a very bad platform, we must realize that we can positively use it. I mean, in social media, we have our allies, we have policymakers, we have activists, we have almost everybody else. And we can always put our advocacy efforts on social media just to correct the information or the misinformation that is happening. I was also thinking because like we always find social media as our crisis response, because that's where we see violence, that is where we see discrimination. Sorry. We see discrimination happening to people and misinformation campaigns. So it's about how do we cap those, because it is the right genuine platform where we see people coming out genuinely to share what they have been hiding inside. So how do we collectively come together to ensure that whatever that people have been hiding is being corrected in such platforms? So yeah, I think for me, we have been working closely with media houses in Lesotho. So I found it very interesting, especially where in the country where you find that accountability measures are being compromised, but also people are willing to come forward to say, how do we support the community to work around disinformation in the country. And with that note, we have been seeing like progress in the country where when it comes to legal reforms, because the same community, the same allies, the same policymakers that we're dealing with are the same people who are hungry to see change in the policy reform. So I think for me, I will encourage that we stick to partnerships, we stick to stakeholders, we stick to moving together, because that will help us at the end of the day. Thank you.
Well, with those very beautiful words, thank you so very much to all of us. And I think my takeaways from this wonderful conversation is that, one, we must write our very own stories. Write your own story, because no one else will but yourself. And the second one is that we must use every available avenue, use every platform to correct wrong narratives, and also make leaders aware of any misconceptions that might have been put there. Is there something you want to say, Sammy?
Yes, thank you, Melosi. Yeah, I just wanted to add that people should look at multiple sides of a story before sharing information. I don't know if that was mentioned earlier.
Right. Very important point. Very important point. Thank you. Thank you for that. Look at all sides of the story. So I was just saying, write your own story, use every available platform, make leaders aware if there are any mistruths that they are sharing, and think, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And I'll say, before you even share information, because sometimes we ourselves are the perpetrators of misinformation, we need to make sure that we're thinking critically about what we are sharing with everyone. As a last word from us, I think I must say that misinformation thrives in environments of uncertainty and division, but communities thrive on trust, knowledge, and engagement. Our goal today has been to empower each of you on what you learn here. I hope has brought you your commitment to challenge to challenge falsehoods. My English bundles are running out. And also advocate for the truth, and also ensure that the efforts to combat misinformation do not come at the cost of free expression. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I hope this has been a very, very useful conversation. From myself, Melusis Melane, Samuel Chigamba, Tamposo Matombo, Zagiti Sibanze, and Sibongile Sugati. It's been a pleasure.